You're listening to Priceless Beauties Podcast. Hey beautiful, Pamela Price here, makeup and spray tan artist, educator and owner of Priceless Beauty Studio, an international award-winning beauty business. But more importantly, I will be your host and cheerleader on this journey of self-love, self-awareness, and growth. Life didn't come with an instruction manual, and entrepreneurship can be a lonely and scary road at times. I am personally inviting you to join me on this brave adventure together while I chat with women just like you who open up and share their secrets about their business, their inspiration, and their stories. When we empower one another, great things happen. All right, babe, thanks so much for pressing play. Hi guys, welcome back to the Priceless Beauties Podcast. I have an amazing guest here, the founder of On a Cloud Creative, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself to those who might not know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Pamela, for having me here today. So my name is Rachel Pereira, and I am the owner of On a Cloud Creative. We focus on wedding photo, video, content creation, and wedding stationery services. I started in 2024. I started at the beginning of the year, but this has been a really long time coming. And yeah, our real focus is blending a balance of both technical skills and also the EQ portion of the process, which is providing amazing client service, really making our clients feel at ease. I'm kind of the behind the scenes, so I'm really booking all of the clients, taking care of sales and marketing, social media, all of that good stuff. And then I have an incredible team of artists stationed all across Canada. We're currently in 4 cities. And what I do is I assign the client with the artist that I think best suits their vision and what they're looking for. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
That's amazing. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey? Because I know it is a new-ish business, but you have a background that really set you up for kind of opening, and the fact that you already are stationed in so many cities, you have such a great team already, and you have multiple different services that you offer within this business, primarily for weddings and corporate, right? So how did this transition happen into founding this business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in event services for almost 10 years. I started in 2015, basically focused in wedding planning. I realized that I'm really great at wedding planning, but it's not necessarily my favorite thing to do. It's obviously a lot that's entailed. And, when I started, I was interning for 2 companies. There wasn't too much of a system or process in place. So you can imagine it's very chaotic. So I basically did that for about 3 years. I transitioned into an industry that was completely different, yet still really helpful in where I am today and how On a Cloud got started. I was actually running an e-commerce business with my husband. We were selling health and nutrition products, and it was really, really fun. We kicked ass, did really, really well. However, I did notice, although the company was really prospering, I did feel like that creative spark was kind of missing, my ability to incept a lot of creativity into the role. And so then COVID, of course, during 2020 really took a turn for our business. And I think it was a wake-up call for me of putting more attention and focus into more of my creative pursuits. So I started playing around with content, YouTube, really dabbling into videography specifically, and also learning kind of the technical skills of photography. And then in 2023, so last year, I was hired by one of the largest DJ photo and video companies, and it was really chaotic. We were running about 700 events for the year, and it was basically me by myself. We eventually hired an assistant, but you could imagine it was really, really intense. I'm so grateful for that experience, though. I really was able to put all of my skills that I had been developing into that role pretty much creating processes, learning the social media part of it, website design, sales, all of the aspects, because it was a startup company. And unfortunately, at the end of the year, I was the position ended up being outsourced, and my role was done. And I kind of had that, it's end of the year reflection period. I kind of had that inclination in my mind of, do I go and basically go back into the workforce, or do I take all of these skills and actually do something with it? And I decided to launch on a cloud. So I kind of had developed a lot of relationships over these past few years with an amazing team of photographers and videographers. So I started actually just going on to the hiring process. And then I noticed clients were asking about invitations. And one of my very good friends is a professional luxury designer. And then we branched off into content. It just kind of has been growing more than I expected.
Yeah.
But one main thing that I really like to focus on is looking at the holes that I found in a lot of the other companies I worked for and seeing how On a Cloud can fill those holes. Because our aim is not to have all of the clients. My aim is to make sure that every single client that we work with is very much taken care of. Because I have seen, when you're onboarding too many clients and the focus is only sales, you're going to get a lot of complaints. You're going to be in a position where the clients are unhappy because photos are going missing, videos are going missing, which is actually what happened in my experience, which broke my heart because it's one of the happiest days of their life.
Yeah.
So those challenges I really turned into something that I could mold and use to create just an exponential experience where the clients are feeling super fulfilled, they feel taken care of, and they feel confident that we're going to be able to knock it out of the park on such an important day of their lives.
That's so amazing. And I loved you had touched on like so many things there, but one thing that really stuck out to me is like having the correct systems and processes in place. And that's something that I'm super passionate about too. And I work, as you know, with a lot of artists and beautypreneurs as well. And I was guilty of this in the beginning too, because I think we all are when we're passionate about our artistry, a service that we provide, or a product that we provide. We get really, really good at doing that thing or creating that thing, but we don't quite understand some of those behind the scenes aspects and the importance of those systems and processes and policies and structure and all of those things that maybe not a lot of artists are necessarily that's not their superpower, right? Like that's not what they're passionate about. So maybe they don't understand how to do it, or they're too busy doing that. And the fact that you bring all of those components together from the back end, I feel like is such a great, like you said, like that missing component that probably you might see in some individual or freelance artists, just because that's really not what they're passionate about. So the fact that you're bringing that component together, because I think what happens with a lot of brides, and they don't realize this, and it's so tricky to communicate this through social media, because when a client goes on, Instagram or Facebook or wherever their, Wedding Wire or whatever event source or something, and they go on and they look at pictures and they think, oh, that person is super talented, which is so true. Like that person is talented. They're passionate about what they do. They're going to create a great product for you, a great service. But part of those services that you don't see are, do they have their shit organized? Like, are they going to show up on time? Did they accidentally double book themselves? Do they work in integrity? Do they have policies and contracts in place? Do they have an organized system so things get done in a reasonable time frame? Like all of those things that you don't see and you don't know. And unfortunately for a bride, if you aren't made aware of this or somehow have some kind of insider information, then you might end up learning the hard way, which could result in an artist not showing up, an artist not being professional, and an artist, not having the proper equipment, or losing their files, or, the horror stories that we hear about in the industry. Some things really can just be avoided just by having a proper system and a proper, a person in place to keep track of all of those things and who is passionate about that. So that's kind of you. That is what you
Yes,
do in the
absolutely.
business. And I think that's a really, really great asset to bring to the industry because, like I said, I think for the most part, it's a little lacking. From my experience,
I
and that's
agree.
one thing I think why we connected so well because that's something that I've been, and I've learned the hard way too as an artist. Like I've made mistakes, and always looking for ways to improve on the back end so that the end result is not just a pretty face or a great photo or whatever, great invitations, whatever the service is that you're providing, but it's a whole entire experience. So I just align with that message so much. So thank you for taking that leap of faith, really,
Hmm.
and exploring what that can look like for our industry and for your business. So that was
Yeah.
long-winded, but
No, I totally resonated, especially with what you said, Pamela, in regards to the experience. Because you're correct, it's not just about a pretty face or beautiful photos or a beautiful video. It's about what was the process that this client went through to come to that end result. And also on the artist side, to be able to excel at art, you're using so much cognitive resources. And if you don't have proper systems in place that are going to be there to back you up, it can crumble just as easily as it built. So I think for me, I really noticed that very early on that there were these really talented artists like you talked about, but they don't want to focus on the process or system. It just takes so much cognitive resource. And then to also be there to show up that day and do their very best and then edit and all of these other steps in between and take care of accounting, which is a whole other field, right? I really resonated with what you said. It's an experience. And I think one of the best experiences is when the client is not made unaware, but everything is seamless.
mhm.
They're not privy to all of the details that really they shouldn't have to be worried. They shouldn't be the one following up about things like payments. There should be someone taking care of that. And again, I'm talking about well-established businesses, but yeah, just making them feel at ease, everything is seamless so that they're just like, oh, everything was taken care of. Like one less thing that I had to worry about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think, like you said, the bride shouldn't have to really know. Like, if you think of the amount of things, it's actually crazy. Somebody who has no experience in event planning, who's spending probably the most amount of money on a single day in their most likely their entire lives, except for maybe purchasing a home or something. It's one
Yeah.
of the largest investments they're probably going to make on a 1 day experience. All of their closest friends and family are going to be there, and there's a lot of emotion and a lot of pressure involved, and it's a lot for one person to take care of. So really, if you're hiring a professional, you want us to deal with as many things that are, under our roof, that are in our control as possible, so that you don't have to worry about the 10 million other things that are happening and going through your mind. Because we're there on the wedding morning, I notice when the bride has too many things on her plate because she hasn't maybe hired the right people, maybe not working with the coordinator, or she's having some issues with different vendors or this and that. It's can be very like debilitating for them because there's such a high expectation, and rightfully so, that one thing could really like the emotion is just like built up, and like one thing could just be like
Yes.
um it can be a lot. And then what happens when something kind of goes sideways, the bride has to deal with it, which she shouldn't be doing, but
Mm.
if that's the case, then the experience that she's supposed to be present in is being taken away. And that to me is like the worst case situation, because you don't want to do all of this planning and spend all of this money and then be stressed for the whole entire day because the florist didn't arrive, the photographer went to the wrong location, the makeup artist canceled, I don't know, whatever. Like all these
Yes.
weird things that could happen. So I always try to recommend that the bride has put the right people in the right places so
Yeah.
that way they can actually enjoy the day. Otherwise, I mean, the point is the wedding, we get it, the marriage, the love, but the wedding is
Yes.
supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and it shouldn't be stressful. So
Yes.
because I'm like right in the moment in the mornings, a lot of times, I kind of see where things go sideways.
Mm.
And just to kind of reiterate back to the importance for any brides listening, probably like a lot of vendors, so you probably have experiences as well, but for any brides that might be listening, the importance of doing your due diligence and doing your research. And that kind of brings us into a topic that we have chatted about and we've shared like on our blog and stuff like that. What are the like some of the important things that brides should be looking at when they are thinking about booking their photographer, booking their videographer, these different vendors that they have in place in order to get all of the experience, done correctly to create that vision that they want for their wedding day? Like, share some tips with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I really do believe that our intuition and our gut is usually on the ball. Usually if you're, gravitating towards a certain style, or you just, see some really beautiful photos and you're kind of, sifting through the Instagram or Pinterest or whichever platform, the website, your gut is a pretty strong tool in dictating to you whether this photographer is the right fit. And I would say trust your gut completely. Usually, if you're feeling like, okay, you know what, this really aligns with our style, send a request in. I think one thing that, I would recommend to avoid is allowing price only to guide the decision. Sometimes, it's just like sending a bunch of messages, asking the price. And by all means, I do understand that that's a huge factor, but sometimes there's not enough research beforehand, like checking if there's any reviews of the actual photographer, videographer. With that being said, when it's a newer company, that doesn't mean that just because they don't have a lot of reviews, it means that they're an awful company either. But I think it's really important to kind of look at a few factors. So yeah, reviews would be one of them, kind of checking to see if this style aligns. I think another thing is looking at, are there individuals like myself represented in these photos? So for example, for me, I'm born in Canada, my parents are Sri Lankan. It was very important when I was selecting my photographer and videographer to actually see myself reflected on screen, because how you capture, a European or a Caucasian or an Asian or Southeast Asian, it's going to be captured very differently. And there's some photographers that, very much specialize in multicultural events. And there's some that, just specialize in primarily one or two cultures. So that'd be another thing that I would also pay attention to. And then once you kind of get an idea of this style and, let's say you send your request in and the budget is matching exactly what you're looking for, then a new conversation should be happening where it's not just about, oh, you're my price. Okay, you fit my style. Let's go ahead and book. I would interview them, finding out some different scenarios or situations that happen. What do we do if there's an accident that happens? Do you have backup photographers available? And this is where I would highly suggest brides to book events where they have both a primary and a secondary photographer rather than just a primary. Just in case things do happen, we're all human. Having that little second line in defense, and they're reserved for your date, is very, very helpful. Also, the benefit to having a primary and secondary photographer is being able to capture multiple angles, because you can very much tell when a person has only chosen a primary, where the photos during the ceremony are only the bride and they're only in one angle, and you have no idea what happened with the groom, because it's just very challenging for the photographer to be capturing both at the same time. right? Those are kind of some of the benefits where you get a beautiful memory of the actual experience, not just like one-sided. This was the bride's experience. Who knew what happened to the groom? Hopefully he had a great day. Yeah, exactly. He was just there. He was a prop. So that's very helpful as well. And, coming back to the interview portion of it, does this photographer or company representing the photographer, do they make you feel at ease? For me, and this is somebody who's planned my own wedding, I, immediately, if I felt uneasy with the vendor, if I felt like I'm going to have to tiptoe around them, if I felt like they get kind of, some of them get offended very easily and you're not sure what happened. And I'd say I'm a pretty nice person. I'm going to steer clear of vendors like that because unfortunately, usually they're going to fold under pressure. There's most likely going to be some stress that's going to come along the wedding day. And on top of that, you don't want to be in a position where you're having to compensate as a client for a vendor. That should never be the case. Talking them down from a ledge. And yes, I've unfortunately seen this before. So I would say those are a few things that are really helpful when kind of deciding. And, if that photographer or company representing the photographer is ticking all those boxes, I would say go for it because your gut is very, very powerful.
Yeah, those are some great tips. And I wanted to just expand on a couple of those as well. I really liked that concept of the interview. And that's something that we've kind of introduced this year as well, where we do require all of our brides to have either a Zoom or an in-person consultation prior to us even providing them with our pricing documentation to kind of just see if we vibe together, if we're a good fit, because it kind of goes both ways as well. As vendors, we want to make sure that we are aligning ourselves with brides who are really excited to work with us, but also for the brides to get an idea of like, just asking those, having that open space to ask those questions or to consider things that they never considered, like, oh yeah, what if my makeup artist gets into an unfortunate situation or has a family emergency? What do you have in place if something like that happens? So I really like I think during COVID, we realized we kind of lost a lot of that personal connection, but really on your wedding day, it's all about personal connection. It's yes. all happening with all of the people that you love. And it's really important to have the right vendors in place. And I always joke with our brides, like, it is a really big deal. And even though we've been doing this for over a decade, we don't minimize the importance of your wedding morning. And you've selected a very small group of people to spend your wedding day with, or your wedding morning with in our case. And then you have some strangers showing up and literally putting things on your face, this close to your face. So it's really important that you kind of have that good human connection with that person. And even though we do have a team and we have, some different personalities and, like you said, different styles and things like that with different vendors, we kind of have an overall, mission and values and a style per se. And so if you come and talk to me or our beauty coordinator, Crystal, you're getting an idea of what to expect on your wedding morning. So I think it's same thing with yourself. So you have selected to work with specific vendors who align with the vision of your brand and the experience that your clients are expecting to receive. So I think it's really great to remember the importance. And it makes me nervous when brides don't want to have a conversation. I'm like, yes. But why wouldn't you want to know who we are? It's an investment in your time and energy. And a big part of how you're going to feel that day is who is with you that day and the services that they're providing. So I always think just commit that time, that half an hour, whatever that looks like, and, jump on that call or grab that coffee with that person or whatever that looks like, and get to know that vendor. You have, most brides spend at least a year planning or so their wedding. You can spend 30 minutes to ensure that you are happy with the person. And you're going to get that. You had talked about that gut feeling, that
Mm-hmm.
in person, it's like, it's just totally different. So if you can
Yes.
even move from the Zoom or the phone call and even move to the in person, if that's possible, depending on where you're located, that would be like my biggest recommendation for both vendors and the clients, because it's,
Yes.
you're now getting into a relationship with that person. Because
Yes.
because of the weddings, it's over a long period of time, so you guys are going to be spending some time together, communicating, coordinating things, and then of course the wedding day as well. So you want to have the right people. I have been on weddings where we were one of the providers, and there's other providers on location as well, and some of the conversations were extremely inappropriate. Some of the photographers were borderline, I don't know, kind of rude, or even
Oh,
like inappropriate. I'll just say inappropriate. We
okay.
don't need to go into the details. And some of the bridesmaids are like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So it can just get weird. So, and it's not always just about the results, but it is about that personality, right? So take that time, make that investment, and also on the pricing, I wanted to just touch on that too. Um, I really think that when it comes to your wedding day, of course, yes, the budget is a priority for you, but consider, what's important. What are the main things that are
Yes.
important to you? So sit down and think about what are those things that are super important to you, and maybe there's other people that are decision makers in your wedding as well. So maybe we have investors, the parents investing.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
so sometimes we have to take those opinions into consideration as well, or we appease the in-laws with certain aspects, and that's okay as well. It's a give and take. So consider what's important to you, and at the end of the day, it's do you want to feel on your wedding day, and what memories do you want to capture to live on, right? So yeah.
I I really like what you said. I use the term wedding non-negotiables, which is,
Mm,
right, things that you're not willing
writing
to
that
waver
down.
on. Yeah, I use that term all the time. What's your non-negotiables? Things that you're not willing to waver on, you're not going to budge. And that's where you can dump a little bit more of your budget into. And then if there's certain things that you've been told are really important, but it just has no significant value to you, and maybe it's a little bit of having that conversation with your investors, right, aka your parents, or your aunties or uncles, whoever's helping out, and having that conversation, just saying, I know this is important to you, maybe you can share with me why it's important. And if there's no real explanation, it's just, well, that's just the way it's done, which in my opinion is not a good enough reason to be spending that much money on it. Maybe it's, I'm going to take away this thing so I can put more into the thing I actually care about. Because there's a few specific things that you can hide in the photos, and there's a few specific things you can't. Right. Contrary to like popular belief, your hair, your makeup, you can't really hide that. That's going to show up in the photos. Your decor, you could, because it's really what you decide you want to keep and what you want to capture. Right. Your photographs, for example, that kind of stays forever. So there's like a few, the cake, like, there's specific things and specific, not saying that any of those are less important. It's just there's ways you can cheat. And also, I meet a ton of couples who go for the minimalistic option where they're not doing this huge deco setup, or they've decided to opt out of having a cake, which can cost quite a bit. And then they've, decided they're going to pour more into photo or more into makeup or more into hair. Because yeah, there's certain things you can definitely know went sour, and there's certain things you can hide if it did, right? Yeah.
That's true. And I noticed like other ways that people have been kind of doing things creatively within their weddings. Like I noticed some, because I know florals are like a big thing and they're beautiful, but I've been seeing even on like some style shoots and some weddings that we've been on location that some brides are doing like a mixture of silk and real flowers. So that way they're able to get that like gorgeous look
Yes.
without the budget of, and the flowers die. They just die.
And
I mean, I
and
love flowers and I love the real flowers, but like for photo purposes and for like arches and things like that, that it seems kind of like a waste. That's just my opinion. Makeup artist biased over here. I love
yeah,
flowers, but I've been seeing it and it actually looks, if you work with a great vendor, it actually looks really good and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. So
yes.
yeah, there's like different ways that and creative ways that you can save some money and still get that look and the experience that you're hoping for. Those, like you said, those non-negotiables. I really like that. I love that
Yeah.
term.
One of the most creative decor pieces I saw was these clients. They loved reading. They're very into literature, and they created paper flowers out of books and
Wow.
pages. And in theory, you're thinking, okay, like how is this going to look? It was stunning. Their centerpiece was books, and then they had these beautiful paper flowers that they made together, and it was so them. And
Mhm.
it worked really gorgeous with the venue space. It was very different. But there's so many creative ways you can do the deco, and DIY is another big one that a lot of brides tap into, not just for cost, but it is quite fun because it's an overall experience, right? And if you decided you wanted to, the entrepreneur in me, I was like, if you want to sell it, by all means, go for it. So there's a bunch of benefits to thinking out of the box when it comes to some of these, non-negotiables like we spoke about. I really like that you brought that up.
Yeah, and there's so many great ideas on Pinterest.
Yes, so
So many
many.
creative ideas, and the DIY stuff can be super time consuming. So it just depends on the individual as well. But yeah, it could be fun. So depending if you're creative and if you have a good group of people that may be willing to help you, your bridesmaids are up for the task.
Yes,
They're up for a
absolutely.
wine night and assembling things, then yeah, then that could be super fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I wanted to circle around about just kind of digging into some of those services specifically that you offer. And because it's something that's been kind of trending lately, I've been noticing in the industry, and it's something that you guys offer. So it is a content creator at a wedding in addition to video and photo. So can you talk about what that is? Why does it matter? Yeah, give me all the details.
Yeah, this has been something like really trending over the last few years. I do feel because I did notice, especially with I think maybe 2016 to 2020, where content creation was ramping up like we've never seen before. Podcasts were popping up. Shout out to podcasts. um, but yeah, the wedding content creation, it definitely does work a little bit differently than a typical wedding photographer or videographer. We like to call it, your wedding bestie person, basically following you around the whole day. If you decide you want to have two, you can have one of the content creators following around your partner. And it's pretty much capturing everything, but the idea is it's raw. So you're not getting the polished photo. It's things happening in live time, where not to say that your photographer or videographer doesn't capture that, but typically we think of those two services as a bit more, edited. You're kind of getting the best of it, where this is capturing all the little nuances, certain little emotional moments, and capturing everything again in live time. So a lot of my couples who request for both photo and video have asked, can we add a content creator to just basically be there? We can do some fun trends. Typically, you'll see props, so sunglasses, umbrellas, fans. I've seen a ton of them, a ton of different cool trends. And yeah, you pretty much get a lot more. So you're going to probably get sometimes, I'd say, double or triple the amount of edited photos or videos. Videos is usually just a highlight reel, but for photos, because it's just a lot easier to capture. And it doesn't take as long of a process. And delivery time is 48 hours. So a lot of brides love that you can just post right away. You're not waiting, sometimes 8 to 10 weeks, which is the typical time frame for photography, some less, some more. You can just post within, a day or two of your wedding happening. Super popular, super cool. I will say the difference though is it is still captured, of course, on a smartphone. So it's not captured on a professional camera. So some of the clients really like, you can do like fun effects with it. It can be a little more grainy. Something that's been trending is the disposable cameras. That's been
Yeah.
happening a lot now, which is really cool. Where you just bring a bunch of disposable cameras. That was what I grew up off of. I love my disposable cameras. Yeah, it's just a really fun kind of thing you can add. And I have had some brides who don't have the budget specifically for video, because video is always kind of you either love it or it's just not of importance, where they put more into their photo. So I've seen a lot where they'll opt for a content creator to just be there to like videograph. Of course, the difference though is it's shorter. So your clips are no more than 30 seconds to 1 minute. And it doesn't compare to obviously getting a professional video. But yeah, it's a super fun kind of different niche that's really, really popular right now.
Yeah, I think that's great. And if you are into social media, if you are on social media, um, I even know like when we do our own services, like our artists, when we capture just like the behind the scenes of the brides, like I'm like, guys, you can't post it until after the ceremony at least, because we can't reveal like, but
Yes.
the point is like, we're just excited to share. We're excited to share what we've created. We're excited to share the experience. And so I think the whole concept of content creation is super cool because yes, you're going to share your professional photos. Yes, you're going to share your video, whatever, but it's fun just to like capture it, I guess, more quickly, right? And those
Yes.
little clips as well. So I think it's a really great concept because if you're to dedicate it to, say, one of your maid of honor or your, groomsmen or something like that, like they're not going to be in the experience again because they're kind of essentially working, or they're going to feel pressure to get all of the things and they're going to miss out on, or maybe they have a couple too many drinks and then you start going downhill after that.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's like you're like filming your foot or something. Like, no. Yeah, so I think it's just a cool idea. I think it's just a great idea. It just adds like that kind of, again, that personal element, and it doesn't have to be super, super, high quality. Obviously, people that are doing it have the best smartphones or whatever, and are
Yes.
tech savvy and like have a good eye and all of those good things. Like that's what they do. But yeah, so I feel like it's just like having, like, I love that. Just say your wedding bestie. So who's really great with the camera. We all have that one friend. Like, it's like bringing
Yes.
that one friend and she's focused and sober.
Yes, and she knows, and that's another amazing thing. She knows your angles. She knows, like, okay, like, girl, don't take it on that side. Only take it on this side, right? It's very interesting. One other thing to it, there have been clients that had asked, "Can we secure this service, but can you not post anything?" And I was like, "Oh, interesting." And for them, if they're avid camera takers, I mean, picture takers, sorry. So their camera roll is typically full. But their Instagram doesn't have any of it on there. And so it's very interesting. They just want to have like all of these memories on the phone,
Oh,
which is really cute.
cool.
Like, yeah, taking it from different angles where, typically in professional photos, it's a bird's eye lens of everything because you're
Yeah.
painting a candid story. This is like kind of like the selfie, kind of like, that modern age way of taking photos. So that was also really interesting. They're like, I don't really care to post. I just want to have a full camera roll of everything that happened. So
Yeah.
I remember those intricate little things.
Yeah. They're just going to watch it over and over.
Yeah,
And then in
exactly.
years, they're going to show their kids and their grandkids, look at how good looking we were.
Yeah, back in my day.
Look how cool we were.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so good.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
fun. I like that. That's a great concept. So just talk a little bit more about the other services that you do as well. That was just kind of one that piqued my interest because I see it's kind of trending. And we did beauty services for a wedding and I actually ended up attending the wedding as well because it was a friend of mine.
Okay.
And the team actually did that as well. They had video, photo, and content person there. And they actually know the person who runs that company. So I saw the videographer, the one that was doing the content.
Hmm.
I saw him posting like that night.
Wow.
So I know that might not be like the normal thing that the content creators do. So I'm not saying that's what you do, but I saw that and I was like, yep, I understand why like she wanted that service, because he was creating quick, short, but they looked really legit videos. Um,
Yes.
in kind of real time on social media, and she was reposting it. So, and we were reposting it. So it was really fun just to have that experience, and that maybe those who weren't able to come, or they, our acquaintances and things like that. Like a lot of people were watching and checking out like what was happening at the wedding. So it
Yeah,
was
it's
a really fun
super cool.
experience.
It is a really fun experience. In terms of the other services we offer, so yes, I tapped into the photography side of things. We have like a super talented team. I've done like extensive interviewing with everybody, so I just absolutely love the energy. They have a very above and beyond type personality. And then when it comes to my video team, they're they're very close to my heart. And I say this because actually one of them is who I inquired about when I was getting married, because I was just absolutely blown away by their style, the cadence of the video, their ability to storytell. Um, the vision for my video is to really have a fly on the wall approach, where we just want, our videographers to be following them without too much posing
Mm,
and it being very, stiff.
yeah.
Of course, those poses, when you pepper those on throughout the video, they are really beautiful. But we really are focused on having the client watch it and look back and say, yep, they got it. Like that's exactly what we felt, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I'm very big on the fly on the wall approach for both photo and video. And we actually have a film editor. He edits for film and television. So he's the editor that basically, gets all of the raw and pieces it together in a way that's unique for the client. We have a client form that typically the clients fill out that gives us a bit of an idea on their story. But I find both with photo and video, you find the story in the edit. That's really
Mhm.
where the story comes alive. And you can kind of in your mind storyboard what you think it's going to be, but then once you get the raw, that's really where you get to tell the story the way you feel is most unique to the couple.
Mhm.
um, the video side as well takes a lot. That was actually where the idea for On a Cloud started from, and then I was like, oh, but I love photo too. Let's just do both. Let's bring it all there. But I feel so excited because we booked some events, about 5 so far, and yeah, it's just been very very exciting. I'm just excited to see what the final result is gonna be like. And I love all my clients, so it makes it really exciting to just pretty much like create videos for my friends. That's pretty much the way I've been looking at it. Yeah.
It's super satisfying because we do, photos and I mean makeup and hair for events and weddings and all this. Like it's so satisfying to see all of the pieces come together at the end and like get to see the bride's photos, get to watch their videos. So we always try to like in our intake form we ask for like their social medias and stuff so that way we can creep on them after and see like
Yes.
how it all came together, because most of the time, 99% of the time after we do the services, we leave and we're like, how'd it go? Like, what did she end up like looking like with her dress? Like, what did the ceremony look like? Like, what were the flowers? Like, we want to see the whole vibe.
Right.
So, it's super satisfying when we get to see that end result come together. And the photos and the videos have such a big part, I think, in just like like tying it together at the end, and then allowing that emotional aspect and those memories to kind of like keep living on, right? And I
Yes,
feel like the video, like you have to do a video, like you can't not do video.
I
Photos are
agree.
great, but like there's just something so much more in a video that just captures it in such a different way. And I think it's the music that you choose and like the angles and everything and how it just comes together.
Yes.
I'm like, I feel like that is a non-negotiable, brides. We got to do the video.
Gotta do the video. For me, like something I very much instruct our team is I lean more towards cinematic narrative based films versus like usually just music playing and then you have clips, which is also still really popular. But the reason I like the narrative based storytelling is because you really get to understand the story a lot more. Like there's only so much that just music playing with clips can do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the main I think the main, I wouldn't call it controversy, but the reason why clients kind of go back and forth is they ask themselves, am I going to actually watch this? And
Mm.
like, am I going to watch this over and over again? And when the video is amazing, yes, you will. Like that can be like a cute anniversary thing you both do. You pop the video on, grab some wine, and watch and reminisce on this. It's just there's nothing like it. So I agree with you completely. Like
Of
make
course, I'm gonna
those,
watch it over and over. Some of
yeah,
my Instagram reels I watch like 14 times. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, this is so good. That makeup
yes,
looks so good. Or some of the videos, that we're a part of or whatever. I'm like, yeah, oh, I watched even that. It's not even my wedding. I
yeah.
watched it over.
That's how
You're
good it
gonna, you're
was.
gonna watch it again.
Yes, let's do this after.
For
Amazing.
sure. Amazing. Okay, I wanted to just kind of switch gears a little bit and just talk a little more about yourself, some of your practices, because I like to get to know the entrepreneurs and some of the back end things. But like, what kind of makes you tick? So, a bit more about your personality. Tell me, because we've had coffee meetings and we've shared a lot of things about mindset. And I know when it comes to running a business, it's really important to have, certain uh, frame of mind, especially when you're dealing with multiple weddings, multiple team members, so many moving parts and wearing all the different hats. Like, we got to keep it together.
Yes,
We have
yes,
to show up for ourselves first before we
yes.
can do the best for our clients and for our team. We have to show up for ourselves. And I feel
Right.
like this is something that isn't talked about enough. Maybe it's becoming more mainstream now, but still, I want to kind of dig into it a little bit if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
Okay.
your question was like, what makes me tick, correct?
Yeah, like in terms of, I guess I'll be more specific.
Sure.
When it comes to mindset, what are, let's start maybe something tangible,
Hmm.
some daily practices that you do in order to ensure that you show up for yourself so that way you can be your best version for your clients and your team. Something,
Yeah,
a hack, a tip, something that you love to do that's really been helpful for you.
absolutely. So I would say the process of entrepreneurship for me personally has been like 75% to 80% self-development, and then 20% is the actual action.
Wow.
Which is a really interesting switch because typically we think of it like, go hard at it and keep at it. And then we kind of put mindset as a bit of the like riding on the coattails. But
Yeah. If
I
I
flip it.
have time, I'll work on myself.
Yeah,
After
exactly.
I've done this.
Yeah, once I'm done these tasks, then I'll work on myself and then more tasks come. But for me, the reason that I kind of view it in that lens is this was in 2009. So I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I, initially looked at it as like a curse. I was like, why me? But I am ever so grateful for that diagnosis um, because I've kind of moved in the route of actually I don't take medication for it. I've been very much focused on doing daily practices and disciplines that can help me reduce and I've put out that thought process that I'm going to eradicate it. And so far I've actually been like episode free for almost a year, which is huge for me.
Amazing.
So, transferring that over to those daily practices every day, one of the non negotiables for me is meditation. I end my day every day with meditation. Even if I'm tired, even if it's a late night, I will turn on the audio and make sure I meditate before I sleep. I find the meditation is kind of the armor that protects me and um, helps me visualize what my reality is going to be like. And then what I've noticed is, the days that even when I'm struggling with it, I find I haven't really come across a morning where I feel worse. it's almost like that armor just helps me feel a lot better, prepared, able to handle whatever gets thrown my way. The other thing is being really choosy with the books I read. So one of them that I'm reading right now is called Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. I love that book so much. It's been very helpful in understanding money mindsets and how to think of finances in more of an abundant aspect where I can attract whatever abundance I want. Um, Another aspect is influence. So I'm very particular with the people I associate with, how much time I allocate to, friends of mine, along with incepting myself with groups. So I do a lot of like Facebook groups, business masterminds. There's something I joined, which was a conscious business accelerator. I have business coaching classes in the mornings. I'm very, very focused on making sure my influence primarily entrepreneurs or people who are supportive of my entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
Because without that influence, it can be a very challenging process. And like entrepreneurship already can be very challenging. So why spend time with people who are going to make it more challenging for you?
Right.
Like good riddance, honestly. Um,
Yeah. Do you
yeah.
mind sharing because you said you listen to a specific audio meditation. Do you have any favorites because we can link them in the show notes for anybody who's like, oh, what is she listening to?
Yes. So I'm very big into Joe Dispenza. He's my dude. So I actually definitely do, and I can share those with you. Um, he has a ton on YouTube. Some are actually from creators that really admire him and they've reposted, or I can just link Dr. Joe Dispenza's actual meditations that he sells them actually on his website as well. So I'll link kind of some of my favorites on there. But
Okay. I
his
love
ones I
that.
find have been really, really focused. Um, I think the difference I've been finding with his is there's a lot of attention on just being present. And I know all meditation is that, but I think it's just the way the tone of the audio is with his voice. It is a little weird though. A lot of people have mentioned it's disorienting, but to be honest with you, it works. A lot of my successes in business are because of those meditations. So I vouch for him 100%.
And I want to like agree and circle around that for a second as well too. When I was introduced to his meditations, I also thought they were a little weird.
Yes.
Like your throat in
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Like, what
Yes.
the hell is he talking about? Okay, so if you're like, oh, I'm not ready for this yet, I recommend going on to, oh gosh, you can just Google mm, Lewis. Okay, so
Lewis
we're gonna
House?
Lewis House. He has
Yes.
an interview with him. Listen
Yes.
to his interview first because I feel like if you understand his concepts before you go into the meditation, it will help you build your confidence with understanding his theories and kind of trusting him a little bit more. And
Yes.
then once you kind of, if you're like, yeah, I like what he's talking about, that makes sense, I kind of resonate with that, then start his meditations. Because if you just go straight to the meditations and you don't really know what he's about,
Yeah.
then it might be a little far-fetched for you because some of the verbiage that he uses and the gaps in his tone and his speaking are a little longer than maybe what you're used to. So it's like it can be a little tricky. But his meditations are also my personal favorite as well. And he also has a really great book. It's a little hard to get into. So you
Yeah.
could maybe audio book it if you don't want to do like the manual book.
Yes.
You could audio book it as well because the content is really great and there's like a lot of scientific research to back it up and things like that. So yeah, definitely check him out.
Yes, that's actually a great piece of advice to do a little bit of research into his kind of the way he thinks and his teachings,
Yeah.
because you're correct. If that's not aligned, then it's a little bit harder to get into it. One other meditation that I really like, and I do this every so often, are third eye meditations by Joe Tracy. So
Okay.
that one I'll also link. I think that one is free on YouTube. I love that one. That one's about 36 minutes and it's focused on how to answer some of those pending questions that are going on internally, and come to resolutions within the meditation. The focus really is how to solve problems for yourself rather than feeling nervous that they won't be solved kind of in our outer reality. So that one I can also share as well. That one's I would say a good intro as well, kind of easy to get into. His voice is really calming. A lot of people I've heard pass out during the meditation
Well,
because it's so
30
calm.
minutes can be like, it's a little long too. Not, I don't know, it depends how
Yes.
long you meditate for, but I could definitely fall asleep I fall asleep easy. So
Oh, that's amazing. I don't, so this is perfect.
I recommend probably sitting in a backlist, like sitting up against, like not against something if you fall asleep easy, because then it's just.
Yes. Yeah, then it's just, you're just like, okay, good night.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Great tips there. Amazing. Anything specific that you recommended a couple books as well, so maybe we'll put those in the show notes too. Any other favorite books
hmm.
that you want to recommend?
Yes, You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. I really love that book. And then I would also say, so this one's a little bit, so a lot of there's two of them. They're written a long time ago. So I'm just forward, like when you're reading it, just be cognizant that some of the examples are a bit archaic. So How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's an amazing book. And then Think and Grow Rich.
Okay, that's the OG. That's
That's
where
the
almost
OG
everything
came
came from.
from. Yes. But those were really hard because they were like, for I think How to Win Friends and Influence People, they're referencing like the steel company from 1933. I'm like, okay, how do I relate that to now? But
Yeah,
it's gold. It's actual gold.
I think like if you dig into the foundation of the concepts that they're sharing, it's universal and it's timeless, right? So like yes, some of the examples are like what? I can't relate to this, but if you think about yes, the basis of what the message really is, and then how can you apply that to your current situation?
Mm,
There's always something that can be taken, right? But of
yes.
course, I find that listening to some of these books is easier than reading them. So sometimes I'll do a combination of reading and listening, or like kind of at the same time, I'll listen to a book and read the book at the same time.
Yes.
I don't, um, I find it harder to retain the information if I listen though, because I'll usually be multitasking. So I'll often re-listen to books like over and over and read
Yeah.
books as well, but I'll listen to them over and over. So yeah.
Yeah. Just to kind of add to that for myself, I normally will have, the audiobook or the podcast playing while I'm doing something a bit more monotonous. Like if it's just something very technical and administrative, it's not requiring so much cognitive resources for me. It could be just designing layouts and stuff. Then I'll listen to some of these audiobooks and I find I'm like able to really pay attention. But, there's a lot of truth in just having it playing subconsciously in the background because you may not think that it may not even feel like you're taking anything in, but I notice that some of those lessons start appearing in your everyday life, certain habits, or, one of the biggest, I would say, challenges for me has always been my relationship with money. I didn't grow
Mhm.
up with a lot of money. Our parents were not like poor, but I didn't grow up in like a very wealthy class, and that was always something that played on my confidence of can I turn my art into something that makes money? So
Mm.
having someone in the background saying, yes, you absolutely can, and here are the things you can do, has really changed the way I view money. And like I didn't even notice the changes till I was maybe talking more confidently to clients or connecting with entrepreneurs like yourself, where that wouldn't have been maybe a reality before. I may have not had the confidence to feel like, am I worth and or enough being in these circles with these people?
Mhm.
So you don't really think, and even in the meditation, you don't necessarily think at the moment, okay, this is going to change things, but you do those tiny steps every day, things start changing because you're pretty much brainwashing yourself to be a
Yeah.
successful person, right?
Yes. That's so true. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I think that's really important because if we don't, if we're not intentional about what we're listening to, who we're spending time with, what we're thinking about, the world will be intentional.
Yes.
The world will do it. So we have to take a step back and figure out, okay, what do I want? How do I want to show up? How do I want my, business to show up? And it all starts with, like you said, those intentional different things that you said. I love that you said you do coaching in the morning, all these different things that you're creating time for to ensure that you're, showing up as your best self and continuing to grow into. And I think we have a mutual friend from the Pro Risk Takers, and
Yes.
Matthew has said it before. We have to unlearn, right? We have to unlearn what maybe our society has taught us, or what our family has taught us, or even like social media or this education system
Yeah.
has taught us, that's not really designed to like you said, have artists become make a living and be fulfilled and be able to thrive and have abundance through something that we love to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because it's becoming more
Yeah.
well known, but it's not something that my parents taught me. It's not something that the school system taught me. It's not something that I saw on TV or anything like that. And it's only through trial and error and getting to know people like yourself and learning and reading and listening to discover that there is an alternative truth available for me and for anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned something that really pinpointed it. You said that the media has a very intentional focus on what they want us to be programmed to be thinking about. And, just to add to one of my daily practices, I actually boycott the news. So I don't listen to the news. I don't have CP24 on. If I'm in a room with it, I will leave the room. And I'm very specific about not listening to media outlets or channels, even like what I scroll on. I'm very intentional. It's not to say like, you should just be living in a bubble and like, don't let anything negative hit you. It's just there's also a period of distance that needs to happen where you can really listen to your intuition and your gut and hear those messages. And then when you're reintroduced to these media channels, you can decipher for yourself, what are these stories and messages that are serving me and what are not serving me. Because having negative news on loop every day, that's
Mhm.
not serving me in any way. There's a balancing act that needs to happen, but for me it was just creating that distance, and I kind of do live in a bubble, and I'm cool with that because that bubble is serving me great and the people around me. And
I think you're gonna hear about the things that you need to hear about.
exactly, my
Like
mom will call me.
somebody will tell you
Yeah.
whether. Yeah, same. My mom will definitely call me,
Yeah.
or it will, yeah, or it will come up in conversation somewhere. Obviously, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm the same. Ever since COVID, we don't have. I don't even. We didn't have cable.
Yeah,
I'm like
exactly.
thinking, like we don't even need a TV anymore
No,
at this point. Like I don't know
no,
why. Yeah. But okay, amazing. I wanted to just ask one more thing before
of
we hop
course.
off. Do you have a favorite quote, affirmation, mantra that you are currently living by? And can you please share that?
Yes, of course. This is my favorite quote. I just wrote it so that I make sure I have it. So, and I say it verbatim. My favorite quote is, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." And this is from Nelson Mandela. I live by this. I think older Rachel was the opposite. I lived by my fears, not my hopes. But I'm at a place right now and around people who really focus on, that optimistic future and taking steps every day to lean towards that. So that would be what I would encourage all of the listeners today. Allow what you really want, your intuitive self, your higher self, really decipher what that message is and then live in purpose of that. Because fears are there to help us to a degree, but they're not there to guide us. They're not there to serve us. And typically, if you're living your life in that fearful state, it's going to be a really miserable life. And there's ways around it. You can definitely shift that anytime you want to. It's just a decision with the actions and mindset you take.
And I heard something the other day that I never thought of. I can't remember where. Oh, I heard it from listening to a book. Let me pull it up real quick. It's called 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna West.
Okay.
And she had said that fear means that you're curious about something. Fear means that there's some curiosity there. So to explore it, but not to let it lead you or to force your decisions. So I was like, oh, I never considered fear as something to be curious about. So just going to plant that seed for you guys. And you can listen to the book.
Yeah. Please send it.
Yeah, I will definitely. Okay, amazing. It was so nice to chat with you, Rachel. I know we're going to be working on projects together. Just feel it. So we do have, if you guys wanted to go into a little bit more in depth into if you are a bride and you have kind of more questions about choosing the right videographer or photographer, we do have a blog about that on my website, and I'll make sure I put that in there too. And of course, if anybody wants to connect with you, I'm going to post all of your links into the show notes, but do you want to just share the best platforms, the best way to reach you if they have questions, if they're curious about your services, if they want to collaborate or connect with you, if they're other business owners? Are you looking to add more team members just out of curiosity? Yes.
Yeah. So just to answer your question, in terms of where to find me, the website, there's a contact us button that gives you a scheduling link, or you can inquire with the form. We also have an Instagram, which Pamela will put in the information. In terms of expanding, I think we're kind of like at our capacity at the moment. We have a pretty good, solid team. But with that being said, I do get, last minute bookings where our team is booked up already. And so I am definitely always open to having backup photographers. We just, of course, do a bit of a screening process where I interview and also get an idea of their style to make sure that I'm recommending a bride that kind of aligns with what they're looking for, bride or groom. That would be kind of the best way to contact me, through the contact us button, or you can send me a DM through Instagram as well.
Perfect. Okay, great. I will make sure to link all of the things in there for everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you again soon. And thanks you guys for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pamela.
Hey girl, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share a positive 5-star review. And as a thank you for your love and energy, my team will send you a free copy of my social media content and goal planner. Please screenshot it and email it to info@priceless-beauty.com so we can get that to you right away. Until next time, let's stay connected on IG. Come say hello at Priceless Beautygram. And don't forget, you are worthy and capable of achieving anything your heart desires.